Last week I spoke to Armin van Buuren, one of the world's greatest trance producers, and picked his brain over the secrets that have led him to such stellar success. I've compiled 6 of those most potent secrets and created a track in the style of Armin from scratch.
I'm a little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head. So it's God's given. That is your higher power sending you that melody. That is very valuable. The melody that's sent to you, sent to you, sent to you, sent to you, sent to you.
Yes! Now I want to see if you can guess what these secrets are as I'm producing this track. So as and when they come up, let me know in the comments below. And before we jump into the door, I want to say a huge shout out to our Accelerator student Faye, who DJ'd for Martin Garrix last week in Amsterdam and had her first release on Stamped Records. You can check out Faye's music below this video, and without further ado, let's hop into the door and get it done. Okay, first thing we need to do is get a kick in there. Now I'm going to go to my favorites kicks. It really helps to have favorites folders, guys, so you can work quickly. I'm going to load in what I call the Armin kick, and we're just going to hit a kick on every beat. Now first we need to actually talk about Armin's vibe. So there's not much to be said that you don't already know about Armin van Buuren. He is one of the world's leading trance producers, has been for 30 years, but he's got a combination and a contrast between really kind of hard, aggressive drops, but lovely melodic breaks as well. And it's that contrast that stops it getting too cheesy. So that's what we're going to attempt to do today. So we've got our kick in there. Boom, boom, boom. Want you in my room. Lovely. And let's build a low end groove with another kind of filtered out kick. It doesn't really matter which one we're going to go for, because we're going to make it quite low in the mix anyway. So let's just program in a groove. Like so. Now we want these kicks to end before the other kick plays, and this is going to stop those kicks fighting with each other. So if we go to our second kick, we want to make this have a basically no release, so it stops as soon as that other kick plays. You could do this with a choke, but that's just going to keep it nice and tight in the low end. So that's our low end groove. Let's just copy that. Lovely jubbly. And next thing we have on our magic list is the Armin sample. So this is what I sampled from Armin talking at the ADE masterclass last week. Let's just bring it in and we can see him there. And there's a particular part of what he said which I really liked. So I'm just going to find that. It is a little quote about melodies.
I can actually play you if you guys want.
All right, let's fast forward.
I'm a little bit religious like that.
Yeah, this bit, this is cool. It's about melodies and that they come from
a little bit religious like that, but
a place that we don't know.
Your higher power puts a melody in your head. It's God's given, because sometimes
I love that. So we're just going to fast forward this bit whilst I pick the best parts of the sample.
The melody that's sent to you.
Okay, cool. So now let's put these all together. We're going to use these in a little while. We need to process them and make them sound really good, but we're just going to leave them there for the time being. Okay, on to the next thing on our magic list. And that is creating a future rave riff for our drop. Now, Armin focuses on his drops first because that's the most important part of the track. So we want this to sound really good without any effects on it. Let's just call this future riff. And we're going to color this cyan, the natural color of synths. And we are just going to use, I think we're going to layer a couple of things for this, but let's try and use wavetable first. So I'm going to try and keep this in Ableton as much as possible, but we will be using Serum as well, because I know a lot of you guys have got it. So let's firstly program in this beat. Now I'm going to choose a scale. I'm going to choose A minor natural. It's the simplest scale in which to write because you're only using the white notes. So even if you don't have the scale feature in your DAW, which you do, you just need to concentrate on hitting the white notes and then you'll never really hit a wrong note. So let's just like draw in a riff that's going to interplay with those kicks and that secondary kick. Oh, we need to name this bad boy. What am I thinking? Armin van Buuren. What are we going to call this? This is AD. We are going to call this Armed and Dangerous. That is a badass name. I mean, he must have used that for a track, surely. It's not really on vibe with the vocal, but hey, we might rename it later. We won't. So nice and simple. And we are now going to make this sound completely not rubbish. So what we're going to do is choose a saw wave so we can get that future bass sound. Oh, that's square. That's better. We're going to set this to mono. Get the attack right down and then tweak down the decay. Let's just move this a little bit out of the way. Hopefully it's not in the way of the screen. Okay, next thing we want to do is layer this up. So I'm going to just group this, and I'm going to duplicate this like so. And let's make this a noise oscillator. In fact, I'm going to get rid of the wavetable for this. I'm going to load in a different synth. I'm going to load in the operator, because then it's easy to get a nice white noise oscillator. So let's choose white noise, take the sustain down. Cool, so now we can just feed that in, like so. And I want to get one other, oh, I could actually add, let's see if that works better, an octave below. Yeah, I like that octave below. Last thing I'm going to do is add one more wavetable, and I'm going to spread this out and make it wide using unison. If this is a bit complicated, don't worry about it too much. Just feel free to rewind and rewatch this bit as much as you need. So let's just listen to this, and we'll do a bit more routing on this, make it a bit more interesting. Let's choose a more interesting shape. And this is going to give it some metallic kind of twang. Now I'm going to go over to the matrix, and then I'm just going to assign this fold. Actually, that warp. I'm going to assign that warp to a different envelope, and it's going to play through every time that note hits. Just give it that kind of twang sound. And let's add some unison to that, to make it nice and wide. Detune it a bit, add some more voices. All together. Okay, now this still sounds really kind of cheap. So what we're going to do is use some careful routing. Again, something else that Armin is a master of, and lots of layering. So we've already looked at the layers. Next thing we want to do is create a reverb for this. So I'm going to use a room reverb. Sorry, I'm going to use an auxiliary channel reverb. I'm going to call this future reverb. And we're going to create some extra groove by adding some sidechain compression to this. So first thing we need to do is add the reverb. This is a bit professor level, this stuff now, but that's okay. You can handle it, I'm sure. So we got our reverb. But it kind of blocks things out and kind of covers up that synth. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a normal compressor, just hit this button here and take the sidechain input from that future synth. And it's going to now duck it whilst the reverb's playing, or duck it whilst the dry synth's playing. And when the dry synth stops, it allows the reverb to kind of breathe back through. So this is off and this is on. Cool, and last thing we're going to do is add one more sidechain compressor, and I'm going to take this from the sidechain trigger input, which is up here. And all this is a really short, sharp tick sample that you can't hear because I've got it set to sends only, so you never actually hear it. But what it does, it can duck in time with the kick, and then we can allow that to bounce that even further. So let's do it. I'm going to have to speed this up, aren't I? And what we're going to do is actually add, let's just call this sidechain pump. And we're going to copy and paste this onto our future riff as well. So we've got all sorts of sidechain compression now. So already we can hear something that's a lot more interesting rhythmically. Boom! Okay, on to the next thing. We need the chord progression. This is where the magic happens. So this is an A minor. So what we can do, let's process these vocals a bit first and see if they kind of inspire us.
I'm a little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head. It's God's given. You have a melody in your head. That is your higher power sending you that melody. That is very valuable, you know. That's the melody that's sent to you.
That's cool. Like, that's going to sound epic. For sure. So what we're going to do to epicify this, yes, that is a technical term, we're going to put vocal. In fact, let's just call this Armin. And we're going to hit the color, natural color of the human throat, which is actually this purple color. And now we need to add a gate to that. So I'm going to add a normal noise gate. And that's just to take some of the background buzz out of this recording, because it was just done on one of our students' phones, Bogu's phone. So let's look. So when it dropped beneath a certain threshold, the volume of the signal, the gate just completely closes it off. And that's a great way to get rid of some background rumble. But now let's EQ this bad boy. Not calling Armin a bad boy, I'm just using the term bad boy.
A little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason you're...
Now we're going to take out some of these kind of resonant frequencies where there's a lot of build up.
A little bit religious like that.
So let's go to 5.
A little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head. It's a little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head. It's a little bit religious like that, but I think there's
that's kind of okay.
Your higher power puts a melody.
Now, next thing we're going to do is just put another EQ on and just...
A little bit religious like...
In fact, before we boost it, we're going to use a compressor. So let's just compress it. Now, I like to use RVox by Waves, which is actually... It was nice to see Armin use that as well, because I use that. But I want to keep it as much to Ableton plugins for this tutorial as possible. So let's do it.
A little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head.
I'm just going to compress it.
A little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head. It's a little bit religious like that, but...
Right, so this kind of sounds cool, but now what we're going to do is feed it out to some hall reverb, and that's just going to make it sound bigger and more mystical.
A little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head.
Like, just think of that before the epic breakdown. That's exactly what we're going to do now. Okay, cool. Then we'll put another delay on this as well to make it more interesting, but straight onto those melodies. So I'm going to work out the chords first. Let's just call this chords. Then we're going to work out melody afterwards as well, because that really is what this song's about. It's all about the melody. So let's go and loop this bit. And I'm just going to get, I think I am going to use a serum for this because there's a pre-made patch, which I made before, which I want to use in a minute. I'll show it to you in a sec. But first, let's just use a saw wave to work out the chords. And I might add some unison to make it a bit thicker. Okay, that's making 0 sound. Taxi. Ooh, that's a bit too detuned. Cheeky chappy. Okay, so what we're going to do, you could use your keyboard if you can play the keyboard and actually hit the arm button. Or you could use the piano roll editor. So if we hit scale mode again, hit A minor, it just makes it very easy. So let's start on the root note. And we'll work out the bass notes first because that's the easiest way to do it. That sounds pretty epic. Okay. And then maybe sustain that last chord there. And now we can copy these up an octave. So we can just drag them up. That sounds good, Will. Well done. Good job, son. And now we can build out the chords by just skipping a note each time. So let's try that. And that's your A minor chord because we're just using the scale notes from within A minor. But what I want to do is actually, I'm going to get rid of these ones here and I'm just going to use this root chord and we're going to tweak it a little bit. Because I really want this like epic feeling. And I'm actually going to use some notes from outside the scale, which would be a borrowed chord, maybe a bit in depth for this tutorial, but you can check out the video I'm linking to now if you want to find out about borrowed chords. Oh, you got me, you got me. Heart melter. Oh, there is another note I want this to hit. Oh, now it sounds like I'm in church. So this is a borrowed chord. It's from outside the key. I think we can hold that though and then move it for the second part of that chord. And this one too. So this would be a suspended chord. So we're going from the 5th to the 4th, but I'm throwing in this extra note here. Oh. And we can do the same here. I don't know if the editor wants to skip past this. Natural, I'm leaving it in your court, man, but I'm feeling this. No, we'll leave that there. Okay, that's pretty much the chords. We're going to tweak this a little bit later, but that is amazing. So we're going to go from something like this. Come on, Armin. Pipe up.
You know, that's the melody that's sent to you.
Send to you, send to you, send to you. Oh. And then we can add that same effect there, but because it's in the bass, it's even more, oh, epic. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, let's build in a Reese bass now. I may as well do this in Serum as well, you know. So we're going to go Reese bass. We're going to layer up that future riff as well, because a style of music like Armin's, layering is important to get that huge sound. You know, if you were producing minimal tech or something like that, you're going to use less layering. So it depends on the genre you're producing. Now, let's get this Reese bass in. What am I doing? See, I got over fields. I got too many feels up in my body. So let's just call this Reese bass. I do know why it's called a Reese bass, but let's not go into it. Okay, now let's add the unison. And we are basically using exactly the same patch as the previous one, except we're going to whack a filter on there and just play it lower down. I'll just copy the bass notes to make it easier from the chords. And then let's paste them in the Reese bass. And we might drop this down an octave as well. I might switch that note beforehand to make it even more. Maybe, but let's make this Reese bass even bigger. Nice. So now we're going to add that second oscillator octave down, just so we can hear the upper harmonics of it, because that's too much. So we just want to kind of feed in a little bit, and listen how it richens this sound up. That's pure dread. Pure dread. Whatever that bloke from Predator 2 said. Yes. Okay, so now we've got this feeling. We're going to add some reverb to these chords as well. Might put them up an octave actually. Oh, yes. Okay, that is just epic. Now what I want to do is create the trance riff. Magic list, tell me what to do. You tell me to make a trance riff, that's what I'm going to do. So this is going to be a bit inspired by, these chords kind of sound a bit like OT Quartet, but you know, that ain't a bad thing. This is going to take us back to the future, that is. Right, R.I.P. Michael. Right, now let's bring in another serum for this. I'm going to use the pre-made patch that I spoke about earlier. This is actually based on Ferry Corsten's Carte Blanche, one of my favorite tracks of all time. Met Ferry in Bangkok a few years ago. Top bloke, another top trance producer. So now we've got this riff. I'm going to just program it in. And this is going to be like an arpeggio riff. So I'm just going to delete all this. Dum, dum, dum. That's pretty much what we're going to do. I'm going to set it to 16ths, already there. Yes, instant, yes. And what I'm going to do is just copy the 3 notes, and that's going to create a polymeter that gives this syncopated rhythm and groove. So if I just play this with a metronome, you're going to hear what I mean. Just keeps on rolling. Okay. But I want to repeat it there, so I'm kind of resetting that polymeter there. And I'm going to have to do this with the chords really to hear what I'm doing. And with the bass. Oh, tune. Let's have a sip of tea. Yeah. And then we're going up. Let's turn off the chords and just go with the bass notes. That's the one. That's the very ticket, son. That is the very ticket. Let's take that filter down. Where are you, envelope? Now you're talking. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop this now. Like, it's just self-indulgence now. Okay, on to the next thing. We have got female vocals, but I wanted to put female vocals on this. It would be epic. Let's just hear what that might sound like. But I'm going to stick to the initial theme because I wanted to use Armin's voice on this. So if we search for, we search for female vocals and hit the right key. So that's A minor. I'm just using Splice for this. If you want to help support the channel, you can use my affiliate Splice link below. But now let's listen to this with some female vocals. You would have heard them before, so sorry you've heard these so many times, but they... Here we go. So we're just going to add some... Let's just... Maybe I do need to use these. Open up. Yesterday. Okay, but we're not going to do that as beautiful as that is because we're going to stick to the initial plan. Let's save this bad boy. Let me know if you're enjoying this, guys, in the comments below. Give me a hell yeah, or an amen, brother, if you're feeling holy. Okay, next thing we want to do is look at the drop because, as I mentioned earlier, if you get the drop banging, then all the effects and stuff are just like extra ear candy. Again, from the words of the master himself, Armin, but it's nice to have these things corroborated, of course, by one of the world's biggest producers. So let's work on this drop. First, we need a proper bass, son. So we're going to create another one and we're going to make a kind of blade, public domain, reverse bass kind of sound. So let's do that. Again, we'll just use Serum. I know I started off saying it would just be plugins, but you know, again, as Armin says, there's no one way of working. You just go with where the inspiration takes you. I personally love starting working from vocals. It gives you a vibe straight away. So now let's program this in first, and then we'll actually start making it sound good. We do not want a gash bass sound, do we? No, we do not. Reverse bass. Okay, again, simple on the A. Just take it down. I'll leave a little gap before the next bass note starts, actually. And this needs to not fight with the kick, of course. So we'll figure that out. Now, instead of using the envelope, I'm actually going to use the LFO for this, just because it's a slightly bigger display. It gives me a little bit more control. So if I hit trigger, I can just use that as I would an envelope now. So I'm going to choose analog, basic Moog, maybe. That's the sound we're going to go for. Because it's kind of got that grittiness already. But what we want to do is then turn on a filter, low pass filter and just apply this LFO to the cutoff. And now we've got that kind of sound, but let's just shape it as we want. So we're already getting that reverse bass type sound. I'm going to go and choose mirror as warp mode and just tweak this a bit. And that gives it a nice feel as well. I'm going to put a sub bass on there. And we want to assign that LFO to the level of that sub bass. I think I might leave it on the sine wave, actually. That sounds quite good. Could add another oscillator, might not be needed. Might be just getting too busy now. Let's listen to it with our kick. And of course, we're going to put a sidechain compressor on here as well. So I'm just going to copy the same one with all the same settings from the future riff. Let's whack it on there, whack-a-doodle-doo. And then just listen to the kick and the bass and just get this kind of sitting nicely together. Yeah, I don't think we need all of that extra stuff. Let's turn this one off. We could add some unison to this. I like that, but because this is stereo, and if you saw my sub bass video recently, this unison in the low end is going to cause phase cancellation issues. So what I'm going to do is go into this wavetable editor and I'm just going to remove the fundamental frequency, which is the lowest octave of this waveform, because we just want that stereo effect kind of higher up in the sound. Okay, that sounds pretty cool already. Nice. Okay, next thing we want to do is add some incidental synths. So we want to really get this groove going. So let's just take this down to there. The future riff is going to be super important in a second. It's all going to tie everything together, especially when we get to the arrangement. So stick around for that. But first, let's really get this groove going. Then we're going to work on Armin's vocals as well. So to make this a bit more interesting, we need to get some random synths, or incidental synths is probably a best way of putting it. So let's call one beep, and let's call one pulse. We'll do pulse first, and this is going to be as much rhythmic as anything else. This is just going to add extra texture to the whole drop. So let's call it pulse. And then we'll add some drums as well. Oh, got so much to show you still. Forgot to add the drums. Let's get that pulse color, the natural color of synths, which is cyan. And again, let's just put a serum on there for brevity's sake. And let's program in a 16th. That's too loud. Wind your neck in. Let's program on every 16th. Super simple. And then we're just going to make it a short pluck. And it's going to sound like this. So it sounds a bit rubbish at the moment, but that's okay. Might take it down. Because we just want to add some interest, rhythmic interest with a pitch to it as well. And let's make this a little bit more interesting. We're going to try adding some FM, some frequency modulation from B, assign that to the envelope. So it's giving it slightly lasers in the house. And now we can just whack one of those sidechain pumps on there as well. And then we've got this kind of effect. And let's put EQ on there as well. Like, that's all we need from this. You know, it can be just a really subtle effect in the background, just to keep the... Let's put another oscillator on there maybe, try it one below. That's cool. I like that square wave. Just adding a little bit more interest. Okay, now we want to kind of get the groove going, and that's what this beep synth is for, before we start working on that future bass, the future rave sound, sorry. So again, we're going to use Serum for this, but shall we use Serum? No, let's switch back to Wavetable for this, just for a bit of interest. So again, we're just hitting the root note. That's all we need to do. We don't need to make things super complicated. It's just about having a groove that works with the rest of the elements. Put the filter down. And let's assign envelope 2 to the filter cutoff. And then make it a bit more of a whop sound. Let's put it down an octave. Add some unison. It's a bit brassy now. Turn it down. And again, I'm going to feed this out to a nice big reverb. So let's color that, keep it organized. Again, Armin's a huge he likes to organize things. Okay, right. So naming projects, naming the tracks, color coding everything, really important. That's something I love to do as well, just helps to work quickly, which is what you need to do if you want to kind of get the vibe from your head and your heart into the door as soon as possible. You want as little friction as possible to that. So all I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this same reverb. And you might ask, why am I not just sending it out to the same reverb? The reason is this middle sidechain compressor, I want this to be triggered by the beep that we've just created. So it's not being triggered by the wrong track. That's the only difference. Now let's feed some of this brassy beep out there. There we go. Let's make it slightly shorter decay. That's quiet. And that's because it's actually quite a longer sound than I want, so I'm going to turn the amp down. And now the reverb's got time to breathe through, and it's still bouncing from the... Okay, now when everything that we've done together so far, let's bring in that future riff as well. So it's all into playing. So we've got all of these elements interplaying together, which is a really important part of this track. Okay, next thing we want to do is add a few drums to really get this groove going. And then we're going to get onto the break and the arrangement, which is going to be a lot of fun. So drums, we want that nice kind of fresh ride cymbal. So let's go and find a ride cymbal first. And this is to help give that really big room feel. I think that's a classic. Let's use that. And then we'll get an open hat in there as well. So let's go and find that open hat now. It really depends on listening to it in situ. So we might change this open hat in a minute, but first let's work on the ride cymbal. We're definitely going to want some EQ on that, and then we're just going to whack it in on every eighth. So let's stop mucking about now. We'll speed it up. So on every kick. So that's every fourth, not every eighth. What are you talking about? Okay, so now it's like this. Let's filter out some of these frequencies that we don't want. So it's nice and fresh. Again, we're going to take the release right down. And what we're going to do is add one of these Ozone Imager 2s. They're completely free, and I'm going to use this to spread out the stereo width on this cymbal sound, this ride cymbal. So let's listen to the ride cymbal and watch what happens. So now we've spread it nice and wide. Just more ear candy. Right, now we really want to make this future riff knock. So what I'm going to do is actually layer this, and I'm going to do a bit of a sample hunt, or a patch hunt rather, because sometimes just stumbling across a pre-made patch that's taken someone hours to make is the right course of action. You don't need to create every sound from scratch. Just think of yourself as a chef more than the person that makes the eggs and, you know, makes the milk. No, you get those components, you bring them together. So let's just hunt for something that's quite punchy. Plucked. That's kind of cool, nice and aggressive. Maybe take it down an octave, see what that sounds like. I like that. That's off. And that's with it. Now with everything else, come on. Okay. Okay, so you can see how this kind of music does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of attention and layering as well, and just careful choices. So what I'm going to do is put this sidechain pump on the entire Future Rave group now. And I'm just going to take up the low end of this new layer that we found, like so. You can hear it already sounds big without any of the effects and stuff like that. The drop should sound heavy just with the kick and the bass and the melody. So now let's add these open hats and just listen to the effect that all these sidechain compressors are having on this track. It's making it sound huge, and it's all kind of an illusion. That's kind of cool, that's already working. So now I want to introduce this chord before the main track kicks in, just a hint as to what's coming harmonically. So let's do some arrangement, and oof, we've also got the Ninja synth coming. The Ninja's coming to town, guys, and he ain't taking no prisoners because he's a badass ninja. So let's just get this arrangement on the go. We are just going to copy and paste that. Now, a common tactic to use, especially if you are making an extended version of a track, is to just roll off the low end of your kicks for the first 8 or 16 bars. It's a nice way to introduce the track, and it makes it easy for DJs to mix. And we're also going to just introduce harmonically some of these synths before the main bass comes in, and that just hints to people what the key of the track is. So let's put an EQ over both kicks and just take out the low end. Let's do that. So we're just starting like this. And this beep can filter in as well, like that. And then here comes the drop. Nice. Obviously, all of that stuff wouldn't come in there. We'd have to not play our cards too soon. We need to be thinking about how people are going to be dancing on the dance floor. So we have a riser. Like that, and then let's introduce the future riff. And we're going to build up to this. We could extend out the reverb tail here, like this, getting ready for that drop. And here we go. Yes. Again, it's going to take time to build into this, so we'll do a little bit more arrangement. We don't want everything coming in too soon. We're not going to play our ace card too soon. So we're going to add 4 of these. Those drums aren't going to come in all at once. So we'll take these bits out and then we'll introduce them there. So that's our first drop. Yeah, it needs the bass there. I'm going to add one more extra layer now, which is just going to help build into the main break. I think I'm going to duplicate the future riff just for brevity, and then we can tweak it. Let's call this Riser Riff. Yeah, Riser Riff. I'm just going to choose a different sound. Again, we're going to just listen through some different patches. Yeah, that's pretty cool, like that. Sounds like it's got a bit too much reverb and delay, so I'm just going to turn those off within Serum. That sounds better, because then we've got more control. What I'm going to do is add a little bit of a pitch envelope on this to make it a little bit more like lasers. Laserlicious. And we're going to increase the pitch range to 24. And what we're going to do is add a pitch bend riser towards the end of the bar to lead into that main break. I know I'm showing you a lot in this video, guys, and this is quite advanced, so feel free, if you don't understand anything, just rewind, watch that bit of a video again, make some notes. Okay, so you can hear that now coming in. So here's that sound soloed. So you can hear it just kind of rising over time. I'll just maybe make it only go up 12 semitones though. So we're also going to fade this in using a utility plugin, and we're not going to automate the volume faders directly, because if we try and change the mix later, then it's really difficult to do. That was another tip Armin corroborated that I already teach, which is really nice to hear. And we're going to work on this beep as well. Layer it up a bit. So let's duplicate the first wavetable and just tweak this a bit. So I'm just going to layer this second synth up in the beep with just a little stabby sound. Should just make it a little bit more aggressive. So this is what I was going to show you. If we get a delay on here, and we can automate this and just create really interesting movement. We can take this down and add ping pong, and then that's going to create this harsh effect. So we can automate this feedback, we can automate the dry wet, and we can automate the timing as well if we want. That's just going to add interest and movement throughout the whole song, and we can do it as much as we like. We can do this, we can add that, add a little bit there. Now let's move on, boom, to the arrangement. Now we've already done a little bit of this, but what I want to do is take this chord and introduce it at the beginning of the track, as we talked about, to introduce the harmonic content early. And I'm just going to filter this in using the filter within Serum, just a low pass filter, and open it up slightly over time. And what that's going to do is just introduce the key of the track before we start. Okay, so let's do it, guys. I'm going to kind of arrange as I go. Okay, let's do it. Oh, no, that's wrong. Too hard, too soon. Don't make jokes, guys. This is a family channel. Come on, have a word. That's better. And now let's bring this cutoff up, just open it up, just builds the tension. And now we've got the first beat. Yes. Okay, right, we can add some more percussion. Do you want that? Let me know. What's that you say? Yes, Will, I would like more percussion. Okay, we can do that. Yes. Here's that first break, introducing our future riff. We're going to take up the low end though. We don't want this fighting with the bass when the drop comes in about, well, now. Oh, that's probably too much too soon. I'll take those chords out. I love that ping pong that we've got on the bleep sync. Yes, let's do it. Now let's bring those chords back in. We're going to build these up to the break. So we're opening the filter up. I've got that little orange lock turned off, so it's actually copying the automation. Alright, here we go. And now we're going to put Armin's vocals. Oh, Taxi. That's better.
It's God's given. If you have a melody in your head, that is your higher power. It's sending
and now we're going to bring in.
Very valuable, you know, that's the melody that's sent to you.
Send to you, send to you, send to you. Yes. Come on, get in.
That is very valuable.
Let's just, I know what we need to do. We need to, like, repeat this. Just gonna go in and copy and paste it. Just like do a manual delay at first. We might need to paste it just before so we can hit the send to you on the thing. I'm gonna actually stretch it slightly as well. I need to warp your voice. Sorry, Armin. Sorry, won't be warped much. And now we just want to make this a bit more rhythmic and tweak the warp. Send to you, send to you, send to you. And then we can just repeat this and make some crazy effects on it. So let's see how that sounds all together. Let's go in there. Let's sustain that chord. And now the trance riff is going to come in, but we want to start it filtered right down low and introduce it. Here we go. Send to you. Yes, here we go. Open up. Oh. Oh my days. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Oh, it just came into me. I apologize you heard me singing. Let's move past this. Let's put it into ninja form. It just stealthed into me. I wasn't even expecting it. It just came into me like a ninja in the night. Stealthy. I'm getting the feels here. I'm basically going to put in what I sang, as embarrassing as it may be. The delay's not quite working, so I'll have to tweak that, but it's not surprising because I just kind of knocked it out. So what we're going to do is actually use a delay unit. We'll delete all of those apart from the first one, and then we can use an auxiliary channel. Armin's been upgraded to auxiliary. It's an upgrade. Well done. Congratulations. Now your voice is going to sound amazing. So we're going to call it Armin Dell, color it a light purple, the auxiliary color of the throat, and then we're going to send out this vocal at that point and just send the whole thing out to the delay, which we need to set to 100% wet. We'll put the echo on there. Remember, we need to make it 100% wet. Otherwise, we're going to be doubling up the dry signal. Then we're going to choose note, and I think 1 to 2 and ping pong. And let's have a listen. Yeah, sounding good already. Cool. But we want that first set as well, and I think I actually just missed it, so let's zoom in and just pull over that automation a bit, and then that's where we want to hit. Oh! Absolute feels all over the place. And I think I actually want to have it so there's no gap just before the send to you, just so it flows a bit smoother. So let's tweak these vocals, just pull them across a bit. Yeah, let's just tweak them around.
That is very valuable, you know, that's the melody that's sent to you.
That's the one. Nice. Something like that, yeah. Let's bring over that to make it a bit smoother as well, a bit more natural. All right, calm down. Shh, calm down. I know it's exciting, but we just need to, you know, stop echoing. Control yourself. Yeah, vibes. Let's take a little bit of the low end out there. A tiny extra echo, I think, just to add some slap delay. It is valuable, very valuable. This is just self-indulgent now. Okay, I'm going to introduce this a bit smoother. I just want to not blast everything, like play all the cards too soon. Same as earlier. Whoops, I forgot to reactivate echo. But we're going to just focus on the synth for the time being. And then open it up, classic trance style. This might be too cheesy, but hey, I'm just going with, I'm listening to the higher self, I'm listening to the higher power. He's telling me, put the ninja riff, put the ninja synth into that. And I'm saying, yeah, I will do that actually. So what we're going to do is use a bit of portamento and just pretty much use a saw synth. So let's go from A up to A. Too loud. I really hope that anyone invested this long into the video doesn't mind my singing. So let's make it sound amazing with some echo, actually. Now we've got this kind of call and effects type sound. Call and response, I mean. This kind of reminds me of, I can't remember if it was Commodore 64 or Amiga, but Bionic Commando. I love that. Okay, but to get that real computer gamey sound, I'm going to add another oscillator, and we're going to go for a square wave, because that's going to give it that nice kind of 8-bit computer game vibes. Let's do it. Square wave, please. Thank you. Octave up. Yeah, there we go, see? Might be a bit too cheesy, but as I said, the ninja hath spoken. So, you know, it's happening. So I'm just going to fast forward this bit, I think. But it helps to sing, even if you can't really sing, because you can then just use it to trace it in. And no one has to hear you sing. You don't have to, I don't know, make it into a YouTube video that millions of people watch. That would be embarrassing. You know, whatever works for you. So now let's put a distortion on there. I really want this to scream as a synth. I want it to kind of sound like Tiesto's Adagio for strings, even though I kind of prefer the Ferry Corsten original of that. Yeah, I want that really kind of screaming synth. So I'm going to use Ableton's amp. I think this is a great tool. It just makes things really wail. Let's just add a little bit, oh, sizzle. I'm just going to quickly finish off this riff. Let's fast forward this bit. And then we'll finish off back down to that accidental. And that is pretty much that riff. Okay, so here we go. Let's work on this arrangement as we go. I'm just going to hit play, and we're going to work on the build up and then how we move into the drop. So let's do it. So we'll start from here.
I'm a little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head. It's God's given. If you have a melody in your head, that is your higher power sending you that melody. That is very
Here we go.
You know, that's the melody that's sent to you, sent to you, sent to you,
sent to you. Let's copy the future riff. We're going to have it hit there. That's going to be how we lead into the break. I mean the drop. Turn the ninja down a little bit. Whoosh, pause. That's how we're going to do it. And then we need to now build up to these next drums. Woo. I'm actually going to do a little bit more work on this because there's lots of sounds, lots of layers. I want to get it sounding good before I give it to you to download. So this is the final result.
I'm a little bit religious like that, but I think there's a reason your higher power puts a melody in your head. So it's God's given. That is your higher power sending you that melody. That is very valuable. The melody that's sent to you, sent to you, sent to you, sent to you.
Yes!
That is very valuable. The melody that's sent to you, sent to you, sent to you, sent to you.
And now for the build. Oh, banger. So there you have it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed Armin sharing his secrets with me last week. And did you guess what they were? Well, now let's go through them. So first is that sometimes melodies just come to you, and this is a gift from your higher self. So even if you're in bed at night or you just wake up with a melody in your head, record it into your phone, because that's the gold that could lead to a hit track. The second is to keep things organized. Armin showed me his file system, and every single project is named in a specific way so he can revert to an earlier mix if it sounded better than the one he's working on. And this organization filters into the projects themselves. So naming tracks, coloring, grouping, all of this makes working quicker and more enjoyable. Third is layering. This is a huge part of this style of music. Now, the track that Armin broke apart last week in Amsterdam had about 90 odd tracks in it, but sometimes they might have as many as 120. Now, if all of these tracks were to be playing different melodies and different chords, it would just be a cluttered mess. But by using careful layering to play the same melody with 3, 4 or 5 layers, you can create a really rich, huge trance sound. And that brings me on nicely to Armin's tip number 4, which is focus on the drop. If you're having to use effects and different drums on your drop to make it sound good, and you can't get it hitting hard with just the kick, bass and melody, then it's probably worth focusing on those 3 things before moving forwards. Fifth is that Armin doesn't limit himself to starting a new track in the same way every time. He also said, whatever works for you is what works for you. So sometimes he might start with the kick and the drums, other times a melody might just come to him, or a chord progression is going to be what starts the track. There's no one size fits all, so go with your inspiration and whatever moves you first. And that takes me on to tip number 6. If it sounds good, it is good. If you find the sound that you're looking for through scrolling through sample banks or presets, or whether you make it your own from scratch, it doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is the end result and how it makes you and ultimately other people feel. Now, there are a couple of bonus tips that Armin mentioned that I'd like to share with you because I thought they were so important. So let's go into them right now. The first is, sometimes we suffer from writer's block. Armin shared that he had suffered from writer's block for almost a year, but the key is to just keep pushing on and producing anyway. You will come out of the other side, and that really is the difference between people who are dabblers and people who are actually professional producers. Everyone gets writer's block, everyone has self-doubt. The only difference is that professionals continue to do it regardless of how they feel. And if you don't give up, ever, every track you finish is a step towards a Grammy. You might think that track has taken you 2 hours that's an absolute hit, but it's actually the 100 or 200 tracks you've written beforehand that have all accumulated in finishing this one really good product that just hits the right nerve. Armin also shared that about 80% of the tracks he's made have never achieved anything. It's just he's had a few hits that have come from producing all this music over 30 years. Now, of course, that's easier said than done sometimes. So if you want accountability and coaching to get your music to a professional level as quickly as possible and help you push through these barriers, check out the Accelerator program below this video. Many of our students are now released on some of the world's biggest labels, including Armin's Armada. Over and above that, look after your mental health, look after your physical health, back up your music regularly, because if you lose it, as I've done before and as Armin has done before, it's an intensely painful experience. And how much would you pay to have that music back? Probably a lot more than the cost of a hard drive that you can use Time Machine on. As mentioned, Armin van Buuren has been producing for over 30 years, so how can a producer like Peggy Gou get so popular within such a short space of time? Well, I've uncovered 5 of her secrets and I put them in this video here. So if you feel like you don't have 30 years to spend to get to the level that you want, check this out because there are some real juicy insights for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you over at that next video.